Welcome to Across Africa, our weekly roundup of stories from across the continent. I'm Georgia Calvin-Smith, and coming up, refugees who've been living in Kenya's Kakuma camp return home to eastern Ethiopia, motivated in part by recent political and economic reforms in their country. Also, Angola's angling for a Kizomba explosion as it tries to tempt over more tourists with its romantic dance and music scene. And I speak to South African design prodigy Thebe Magugu. The 26-year-old wowed LVMH judges last year to win one of the world's most coveted fashion prizes. He is now exhibiting his creations at his first Paris Fashion Week. But first, the raft of changes in Ethiopia under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed since he came into power in 2018 has prompted refugees to return. Many are heading back from Kenya's Kakuma camp, and thousands more are expected to follow. Wasim Cornet has more.
It's been a long time coming for Fathi Osman and her family. These Ethiopians are about to board a plane and return to their home country, leaving their refugee status behind them and officially becoming returnees.
I came here in 2009, I was very young. Even I don't know how to write and how to read. That's why I come here in Kenya. Even I said that Kenya is good here. So I cannot forget even Kenya, but I'm going home.
This is the first voluntary repatriation program for Ethiopian refugees in Kenya. It's part of a growing trend of thousands of people who are choosing to go back home, spurred by political and economic reforms taking place inside Ethiopia. After a short flight, this group is finally back in their home country. About 4,000 returnees are expected to follow suit this year. The effort is supported by the UNHCR and the governments of Ethiopia and Kenya.
There is a fundamental right for all refugees to return home when they choose to do so. They come home and establish themselves in their families, in their villages where they had to flee from. And UNHCR is really happy today.
More than 10,000 Ethiopian refugees in neighboring countries have expressed their desire to return home. For most, it's an opportunity to forget about the brutality of conflict and displacement and to look forward to a new chapter in their lives.
Since the start of February, motorcycle and tricycle taxis known as Okada and Keke have been banned in Lagos. It's had a huge impact on drivers who, until recently, made a living getting people around the notoriously dense traffic of the Nigerian city. Chinwe Osundu reports.
Bosa should be the owner of the tricycle after paying off a year of installments. She made a daily deposit of 3,000 naira, nearly €8 to the owner. The recent enforcement of a ban on major Lagos roads has ruined her plans.
They say they want to ban the tricycle operator, but they know what they're doing. They're deliberately putting a strain on us. They want us to suffer.
According to the Lagos state government, tricycle and commercial motorcycles don't respect rules. They are blamed for about 10,000 accidents between 2016 to 2019. These motorcyclists find customers via mobile app and are considered legal workers. They follow the rules, they use helmets, carry one passenger at a time, and operate with a license. But they too are affected by the ban.
If they caution us on how we drive, how we speed, on all these things, we cannot be able to amend ourselves. It's not to the extent of banning Okada or Marwa.
Since the ban came into force, Bose has stopped working. The tricycle owner has asked her to return it. Lagos State is encouraging people to use buses to get around as part of the government's attempt to change the image of the metropolis.
We were putting adverts in newspapers, we were talking on radio and putting jingles on radio and telling these people what to do, but they are just hard of hearing. As far as they are concerned, there must be no law, there must be no order. And no government will look at that kind of situation and say, because people want to get from point A to point B, it's not going to enforce the law.
Lagosians have gone way past the surprise of the ban of the use of the bike, popularly known as Okada, and the tricycle in the metropolis. And they are getting used to different ways of getting to their destinations, which involves trekking for some distance.
Kizomba means party, and that is almost a guarantee in some parts of Angola. It's the country where the dance and music of Kizomba originated. As the country looks for new ways to tempt tourists in, the global explosion in interest in the romantic sounds and moves of Kizomba is a winner. Shelley Sitman has more.
The tune is turned up at nightfall on Luanda's beachfront. Tourists and locals have come to dance to some Kizomba and party. Party? That's precisely what Kizomba means in Kimbundu, one of Angola's main languages before the Portuguese colonized the country. The dance mixes a traditional style and sensual moves.
Kizomba means everything to me, just as much as my country, Angola. Sometimes I hear people say that the Kizomba is only a musical or dance genre, but Kizomba is an identity.
Kizomba is such a success, it can now be heard far beyond Angola, all the way to Europe, the US, or Australia. But Angolans want everyone to remember this is where it all started.
Kizomba can influence tourism and our economy because there's a lot of foreigners that would like to come to Angola to dance. We should take advantage of that and create better conditions to welcome them properly here.
Can Kizomba jumpstart Angola's tourism and its ailing economy? For some, it's so good it could become the new salsa or tango.
Now, last year's winner of the coveted LVMH prize for young fashion designers was, for the first time, won by an African. South Africa's Thebe Magugu wowed judges and the world with his creations. And since, awareness of his work has gone from strength to strength. This March, he was in the French capital for the first showing of his autumn-winter collection for Paris Fashion Week. The 26-year-old says that the story of his work is rooted in the people he grew up with. I caught up with him at his showcase at the Palais de Tokyo.
I think when people think of Africa, they think of like this one-dimensional sort of thing, especially in fashion. They tend to think it's just like a generic print or, you know, a certain silhouette. I just wanted to present my vision of Africa. So the exhibition is called Ethiopian Extension, which is the name of the township where I'm from. And Ethiopian in English translates as beautify yourself. And basically went back home and photographed the people, cousins, friends who sort of raised me. My cousins, my mom's house, my uncle on a motorbike, people who serve as really my earliest references, really. I grew up with such powerful, strong, independent, headstrong women from, you know, my mother, my aunt, my grandmother, and seeing how they sort of navigated their lives through, you know, through the good and the bad was really, really inspiring, and that's why I wanted to create clothes for that type of women.
And how have they reacted to your success?
My mom, she's very proud. She's very happy, but she says every time I come home, I have to bring her samples that she can dress up in. She's very happy.
There's a lot made of the fact that you were the first African to win the LVMH prize last year. How has that changed the way that you work?
The most important thing for me has been the mentorship program that comes with winning the prize, sort of carried out by the execs at LVMH, and for the next 12 months, they basically said, you know, their books are open for me to access, you know, and it's people who help across sourcing, intellectual property, suggestions for production, you know, things that are invaluable for any designer, I think, whether you're emerging or established.
And do you think that makes a difference for perhaps more exposure for future African designers going forward?
I definitely think so. You know, I always say, like, if they manage to find me, and, you know, I think that shows you that there's so many more.
Do you think much is changing in terms of diversity in some of the more traditional international big fashion houses?
I think it is changing. It sort of has to, you know, because what I always say is that people really need to realize that, you know, with all the controversies that have happened the past few months with, like, big brands sort of releasing racist imagery, and some of them argue it was unintentional. I think that is combated by just getting a more diverse staff. I think if there was someone who wasn't, how do I say, if in the meeting they would have about a certain campaign, if there was more than one voice or a more diverse set of people in that meeting, I think someone would have picked up their hands and be like, that's actually, that's maybe not the best way to do that, because in our sort of community, that brings up a lot of pain. What happens next? I really just want to focus on building this global brand that has, a footing all over the world, but based in South Africa, that really creates jobs and sort of contributes in its way to like the economy from back home, because I just don't want to contribute to the brain drain that Africa is going through, and we don't want to just be there with my peers to sort of just figure it all out,
Thebe Magugu there. That is, though, all we have time for Across Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.